all of you are here. Renee, I didn't see you walk in. So anyway, we're just really glad to have all of you. Everybody's here, I think, except for Mandy and Lisette Diaz, so they'll be here hopefully soon. We had some late flights last night, and I know that's been an issue with some, but thanks. We just want to say, I want to say, first of all, I want to thank Brian and Debbie. You guys have a notebook in front of you that is amazing, that has all kinds of information, and Dennis too, but there's all kinds of information in here that is going to be so valuable to you. This is probably, it far exceeds our last year's certification, the coach camp that we had last year, which was our first. This is our second. Tomorrow, when we start coach camp, we're going to share a little bit more about just how fortunate we are to be where we are with this whole coaching thing, and what a quality, I hate to call it program because I kind of don't like that word, but to go through coaching is kind of a program. But it is a process that I think you can use for a lifetime. In fact, this morning I was reflecting on a verse I read yesterday. I get this daily email from National Association of Recovery something or another or whatever, but I love it because I am certainly in recovery on some patterns of life that I, through the grace of God, He's helped me to try to change, that I still work on, like all of us probably in coaching and all those that we coach. But emotionally healthy spirituality, emotionally healthy church, hopefully that's a resource you're all familiar with. But anyway, there's a daily email that's sent out that's a lot of that. And yesterday, Job 21:1 was sort of the scripture that it started out with. And it was, listen carefully to my words, let this be your consolation that you give to me. Now, just to let you remember, this was Job's friends, Job 21, so Job's friends were trying to give him all kinds of advice. I don't know if you remember that part or not. It wasn't always exactly the most helpful kind of advice, but Job's friends were trying to give him lots of advice. And Job turns around and he said, will you just listen to me? Listen to me and let that be my consolation. I thought, wow, what Job is asking for is coaching. Yeah. He just wants somebody to listen to him. He wants somebody to ask him questions, not to tell him advice that they don't know how to give because they're not in his life. But he wants them to listen carefully. And listening is so much about what coaching is about. We talk about asking questions all the time. You can't ask questions. You can't ask good questions, the right questions, unless you are really listening, actively listening. And I know we're going to be working on that a little bit in Coach Camp as well. I think that's a lifetime practice. But anyway, today's certification, this is all about you becoming ready to start coaching. So most of you, if not all of you, I know we have a few people in here that are guests and are just kind of here to learn what you can and are not quite ready to be certified. But most of you, at the end of the day, want to be certified. And becoming a certified coach means that you have been through a year of coaching. That it means that you have learned a lot of things, you have benefited, and you want to turn around and benefit somebody else. It means that you're going to be really committing to a lifetime, or certainly during your coaching, of continued training and learning. I was thinking about, our son called us a couple of weeks ago, and he actually finished his last flight of, he's been through 6 years of training out with the Air Force to be a pilot. And he was so excited, he finally finished his last flight. And he said, and he sent us a text first of all, because it was right on his way to go to his debriefing. And he said, mission ready. And I thought, that really is kind of the end of the day, that's kind of the goal at the end of the day, is mission ready. But what that doesn't mean is that you're finished with training and you're finished with learning, because now he goes to his base and does more training and learning. And let me tell you, there will be lots and lots more training and more training. And that's what coaching is all about too. So anyway, we're going to launch that today for you with this certification, but it's kind of a beginning. And those of you that are mission ready, you may want to practice. Roy and I both had 3 people our first year of coaching that we actually paid for, because it's like, I'm not sure I want them to be guinea pigs and all that kind of stuff. But we didn't have the training and the setup that we have today either, so I will tell you that. But anyway, so end of day, mission ready, ready for lots of great things. But thanks for being here. I'm going to be kind of in and out, but Brian and Debbie and Dennis will be here all day with you, and they're awesome, so thanks.
Thank you. And we are very excited about how we're expanding the group of you that are here. You'll get to spend the next 2 days after today with many of our certified coaches, a few of which have are participating with us here for the next day. And they will be a great resource for you. But our goal is really to just feed into you and let you ask questions, get acclimated, and learn and grow. So we want to go around and give everyone a chance to introduce themselves from a leadership perspective and being able to guide this thing called CDM coaching that has taken a life form. Dennis Blevins and Bill Mowry have really been at the helm for a period of time, and they invited or cajoled or handed off to Debbie and I some of the administrative efforts, and it's just been a blessing working with these guys and with Margaret and Roy over the last year. And we have had just an absolutely great time every month meeting with all the coaches on the coach calls and getting out. And I've been able to get into the field with a few of you to see what it's like to be face to face. And we'll give kind of our perspective of what we're doing more in the coach camp. We'll talk about some of the successes we've had over the last year. But this day is about you, and we're going to try to keep the focus on all the content around certification, and then we'll talk a little bit more generally about coaching in the 2 days of coach camp. So appreciate you being here. Let's go around. If you can just say your name, where you're serving in Navigators, and then what you want to get out. If there's one defining objective you'd like to get out of this day of certification, or if there's one area where you're kind of really hoping to gain some new knowledge, if you could just put that out there and we'll try to capture that, that would be great.
Linda and Richard Ryder, we're from Columbus, Ohio, and we pastor a vineyard church in Columbus. Bill Mowry has been our coach over the past year, and so we're getting in the process of implementing and developing a real strong culture of disciple making within our particular vineyard church.
Fantastic. And from certification, what are you hoping to gain in this day?
Our end game would be to actually become coaches.
Anything to add to that?
No, Margaret has been my coach over the last years.
All right.
I'm very new just within the last year. I've really learned about this, and it's helped so much, and I thought I could give to others, I will.
Awesome.
Bill's been my coach.
And Bill's been your coach? Dean?
I am Dean Ridings. I am a NAV representative here on the Front Range in Colorado. I'm also point person for CDM communications here at headquarters. And Sam Hershey's been my coach. And what I'd like to get out of it is I am looking I'm looking to go deeper on the DISC survey in terms of understanding the elements and being able to coach in light of it.
Awesome. Thanks.
I'm Vern Hunt. I'm from Florida. I guess what I really want out of this is I want to be able to, as I meet with the different pastors in our area, to be able to do a better job just doing one-on-one.
Who's your coach, Vern?
Jeff Stringer.
Awesome. Thanks for joining.
Tom Mabey from Rockville, Maryland, outside of DC. I come with some training, pretty extensive training and a little bit of coaching, or some coaching. Dennis and I just started working on the process, and probably to try to figure out how to dovetail what I've come with and what CDM has been and is doing and how they fit together would be an interesting part of it. Also, it looks like part of it will be focusing on teams, which is a different angle than I've looked at, so I'm anxious to hear more about that.
So CDM insights and team. Dean?
Dean Alfin, Akron, Ohio, home of LeBron James.
Again.
It's been a great week in Akron, Ohio.
Where will we go
Tough
next?
few years.
A couple sad, miserable years. Actually, 50 years since we've had our last championship, but who's counting? Looking forward to just getting certified and continuing learning and growing about coaching. Bill is Maury's my coach.
Awesome, brother. Thanks. Steve?
How do I up that one?
You chose to sit there.
Steve Stahl, and my wife sends her greetings. Cheryl, wish she could be here, but yes, we were, I was coached by Bill Maury, my wife was coached by Margaret, and we were here, this is the second certification I'm going through here last year, and we're from the great state of Texas in Houston, energy capital, and looking forward to being refreshed and gaining vision for clientele.
Excellent. And we are going to definitely talk about vision for gaining clients in the camp itself. So I think you'll gain a lot from that. I'm excited about the interaction that we're going to have in that area. Louise?
I'm Louise McCree, and I'm with Clearwater Community Church. I just became a partner in June, and working with Brian and Debbie. Debbie's been coaching me since last October, and so excited about that. And just want to get a good overview again of all the components of coaching, just to be able to go out there and get started.
Jeff Edwards from Tampa, Florida. I've gone through the life coaching part, but not the ministry, so I need to finish that. Did that with Jeff Springer, but finished up with Brian. But we have an amazing opportunity coming up with the Tampa Bay Baptist Association that is over about 180 Southern Baptist churches in that area, and they've already in principle agreed to work with us to develop some kind of process like we're doing. NABS is doing with the North American Lutheran denomination and trying to match it up to an association level rather than just an individual church level. And so part of that is going to be needing to get mission ready for that process.
Okay, that's SBC.
Southern Baptist.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that a little in the camp itself when we get to sharing some successes and trying to get an understanding of where else we might be engaging with Southern Baptists.
Whenever you get there, I have a word on that, but we'll wait.
Awesome. Fantastic. Anyone else? Yep.
I'm Renee Lyons, and I'm here in Colorado Springs. My husband and I are on the international executive team of the Navigators. And I'm here to be recertified, but I'm also trying to learn more skills to help with my coachees and how to build it. And also, we're more applying it in our international community as far as our staff overseas. Wanting to develop that.
Awesome. And what do you hope to get out of the time here?
Learning how to do that.
Do that. Fantastic. Yeah, we've been blessed over this last year with growing the number of women that are available, and we are seeing a momentum building for this year ahead in the need for women coaches. So we're excited for where the journey's taking us. So thanks for being here, Renee, and looking forward to it next year. Don?
Don Muse, San Francisco Bay Area. CDM as an area rep. I hope to get a lot of all that was already up there.
Okay,
Those are all
good.
good. I mean, it's like he stole mine, he stole mine, he stole mine. So that, and also maybe a better, clearer understanding of how to transition between, how to take someone who you can tell by their questions and the way you're dialoguing that they want mentoring, but how to move them back towards coaching. We can touch on that some way. Because that's one of my weak parts. Is if somebody wants mentoring, then I want to tell them how to do it. But,
Yep. Excellent.
so I hope that helps other people who are.
Yeah, it will, and I think that's great. We're gonna talk briefly about that in the overview, but we're gonna hit it really hard in Coach Camp about,
Yeah, some one or two nuggets that I can click in the old noggin here and go, just a phrase or a saying that I can hold on to. That would be great.
Yep, and mixing together all those elements of mentoring, discipleship, coaching, how does it all fold into a nice relationship that you can build?
I am Keith Carlson from the great state of Iowa. If you say it quickly, it sounds like home of LeBron James too, but it's Corn State. Anyway, Brian Zaas is my coach. So thank you, Brian, for pouring into me. I learned a lot. I was a pastor for many years. I have a heart for pastors and to help coach them and to coach businessmen, but I come at it from more of an intuitive approach, and I need the tools, I need the systems, and even the disc tests and things like that, and I kind of chafe at it at the same time. Brian knows this, so I need this, and I really appreciate your ministry in this regard, and I'm already in the process of coaching a couple of them, so it's exciting.
Awesome. And Keith is going to be picking up one of our folks from the NALC, so that may have started already, but we're excited to see you jumping in there with us. Thanks. Dan?
Yeah, Dan Paulberg from Portland, Oregon. Dennis has been my coach, and I'm currently coaching a couple guys, and I think, so what I'm hoping to get out of this is to evaluate what I'm doing in light of what I'm experiencing. And yeah, so I think it'd be good, kind of refreshing, evaluating myself.
Evaluate against personal experience and kind of how the journey's been. That's great.
John Radcliffe, Pennsylvania, about 1/3 of the way across, and with CDM, regular rep. What I'm hoping to get out of it is skills that will better help me engage with pastors and church leaders. And also as the CDM process unfolds and coaching becomes more of a beginning first step to really be able to engage with that too.
Yeah, great. And I hope that over the next couple of days we're going to try to open the door a little bit wider so people can see not only what we're doing with pastors and pastors in their lives, but we're finding a great entry point into the church is actually through the elders and council members that are sitting over top the churches as business leaders, and engaging them for coaching as business leaders and folks who are guiding churches, and then finding that having them endorse us into the pastoral staff is a great venue to get that entry point. And so part of our discussion over the next 3 days is going to be how can we be more effective at that. And I think for a while we've been really focused on just the pastors, and I think we've got a great resource that goes far beyond just that and goes into the ministry leaders as well. Peter?
Yeah, this is Peter Hong from Southern California. I have been working with the CDM there, but I have been learning since about 6 years ago about coaching. And I have experienced lots and lots of aha moments.
Lots of what?
Aha.
Okay.
From my days of spiritual directorship, in terms of my relationship with people, as I change my role slowly into coaching role.
Okay.
And I've been coaching lots of lay leaders and pastors. And though I've been certified, each time I come, I'm feeling that I'm collecting some new precious gems.
That's awesome.
So that's why I decided to volunteer to come today
Thank you.
to learn as much as possible. Thank you so much.
Glad to have you here, Peter.
We are Amanda and Lisette. We are from Miami. I've been in the through the coaching process with Jeff for about a year, and we're here to learn. We've been involved very deep in counseling. We went through training in Guatemala in counseling and discipleship, but coaching is something that we want to learn more. And my wife, she wants to get a taste of coaching because I think it's a powerful tool to use to help others to go to the next level. So thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, glad to have you guys here, and we are definitely seeing tremendous opportunity to expand what we're doing in coaching into the Hispanic Latino community. So there's going to be a growing need in the next year to have folks trained up. So glad to have you. Plus, when we bring you to Clearwater, it'll be nice.
That's for sure.
Was that anything to add?
Yeah, the thing that my husband said, I'm here to learn, how to help people to reach their goals and
Good, good. And I think it's there is a difference, and we'll talk about it a little bit between, we talked about mentoring, we talked about discipleship, counseling. Sometimes it's hard to see the line between counseling and coaching, but we've got to be clear on when we need to make that an option to the folks that we're coaching. We're not certified counselors, many of us, some of us are, but for those who aren't, when it moves to counseling, you need to get them to a professional counselor, and I've still engaged from a coaching perspective, but we'll talk more about that as we go through the next 3 days.
Brian?
Yes.
Sorry, I just had to interrupt you. Could you key in on that, what you said?
The
At
counseling.
some point, how do you know when you need to move from, that they need to count, that you're at the end of your coaching and he's like, hey, guy, you need counseling? I mean, how do you say that? How do you know that? I'm being honest here. It's like, I could say that, but I don't want to say it like that.
Yeah,
I mean, how do you, what are the key things is like, okay, if you could address that, sorry.
Absolutely.
Keep going.
And there probably has been times when Dennis has felt I needed counseling, but hasn't.
Hallelujah, Lord.
You have an in-house one, don't you?
Yeah, I do actually. Thank you for that.
Hi, I'm Debbie Zaas.
Brian's in-house counselor.
Keeping him on board. We're from Clearwater, Florida, and I guess my goal here is really to have most of your answers addressed. Praying that you all leave here feeling excited, feeling confident to go out there to help others with coaching. So anything that is not in this agenda, in this book, make sure it's brought up when we have the questions. So we'll definitely try to address them all.
Dennis is going to be kicking off the next section. Do you want to do your introduction, Dennis?
I'll do it when I step up.
That's what I thought. So from a just logistics vantage point, I'm not actually sure where the bathrooms are, but I think if you go down the hall
To the left.
to the left, you'll find them. Dinner tonight is going to be at Panino's. Everybody is invited to go. We'd like to have everybody there just to get some social time, and that'll be at 6 p.m. So we'll talk more about that as we close out. But the first part of this will go to about 10:15, maybe 10:30, to go through the foundations for coaching. Then we will have a little bit of a break, and then we'll go into the 2-hour call and the 30-minute call from there. And then we'll have lunch on site and break from there. Then this afternoon, for those who wanted to get insights around the DISC, we're going to talk about coaching to the DISC. Hopefully everyone was able to bring their DISC with them, or if they don't have it, can at least share a little bit with those that are around there, because we are going to do an exercise around coaching for the DISC. And then we're going to look at the Core 4 model in more detail, and we're going to do some practice coaching with each other, probably in triads. during that, and then we'll wrap it up and head to dinner. So we've provided for you as much material as we could in these booklets. What we've learned over the last year is we've engaged with North American Lutheran Church, we've engaged with a number of different local churches and pastors, and a lot of us have been doing a great job just winging it, and while winging it goes so far and does a great and gets us in the door, and we've seen a need for consistency as we grow, and we look to work with larger denominations, and so our goal was to really give each of you deeper insight than we gave our first certification class a year ago that Dennis and Bill and others had ran. As we went into that certification class, a lot of the tools are out there electronically, but we didn't provide them in hard copy. And what we really wanted this guide to be was a resource that you can always go back to. So when we talk about coaching, it is a process of coming alongside a person or team. And I think the difference between Christian life and leadership coaching versus just general life and leadership coaching is our goal is to align it to God's perspective, God's purpose through devotional time, through taking those who we're coaching into God's Word and into prayer time and into devotional time to see how that's impacting their agenda for wanting to move forward. Dennis will go through in more detail that as we coach, it's really current reality, where do you want to be in the future, how do we close the gap? Basically that simple. And how do we track and measure progress along the way? So our hope is that over these 3 days, you get those steps in more detail to the point where you feel comfortable going out and coaching. It's been asked, how is it different? So we provided at the CDM conference this year a quick chart that shows coaching, discipling, counseling, and mentoring. We're not going to go through the chart in detail, but you've got a goal, you've got a source for change, you've got a process by which each of those four are discussed, and hopefully give you some insights into that regard. As we get deeper into our discussions, as we go through, we'll try to hit on some of the differences between discipling and counseling and mentoring in more depth, but you have this quick snapshot resource available to you. One of the things that we've learned in the last year is the importance of having an upfront agreement, and going through this part of the effort is sometimes challenging, especially for those of us in ministry, to really get clear buy-in from those who we want to coach. And so starting with an agreement, we really do need to set objectives, clarify expectations, talk about the coachee fit. And many of you filled out the questionnaire at the beginning of your coaching journey. It's meant to provide that upfront agreement. But that's the time in that first discussion, in that 2-hour call, where we can clarify that agreement and work through different nuances or changes that need to be done, and what the expectations are, both from us as a coach to the coachee, and there should be expectations that the coachee has for us. And when we talk about things like the DISC assessment in the tool, there's a comparison report that we all get, and many of you have already experienced with your own coaching journey, where you get to really see, how do I compare to my coach? So how does my coach and the coachee align or not align? For example, I get the pleasure of coaching other folks that are quite alike me and folks that are quite different. And I tell the folks that are very much like me, which is a high D, small I, that, you know, if you're a high D, small I like me, we'll have a tendency in the coaching relationship to just go 100 miles per hour heading towards a wall, and neither one of us see it, and just, you know, in my coaching won't slow you down. And so in the beginning, I set some expectations in that coaching. You know, let's put up a caution flag as we're going through our coaching relationship, that both being high DIs, we might actually, you know, take each other. We might actually be going so fast in a direction that I'm not slowing down to just make sure you're assessing what the gap is. So things like that are great discussions to have with the people you're coaching. That alignment happens in the 2-hour call, where you go through the questionnaire, you go through the DISC assessment. You're going to get a great deep dive into that today. And then we're going to go into the coaching sessions themselves. 30-minute coaching sessions. Open with prayer, close with prayer, and then about 30 minutes of actual coaching. And we're going to talk about that and what the steps are to process through that 30 minutes. And then lastly, follow through. How do we know when coaching needs to make a transition? Or in coaching, sometimes we need to off-road. And what do I mean by off-road? Sometimes I'll be coaching somebody and they'll say my biggest challenge is financial stewardship. I don't know how that's impacting my ministry to such an extreme that I'm not able to really focus on what I want to do in my ministry. And I'll say, well, would you be okay with taking a detour for just maybe a month or so or 2 months and go through Crown Financial or Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University? I'll give them a couple resources to look at, and we'll actually shift from the standard leadership coaching journey and do a deep dive into that stewardship, and then we'll circle back and on-ramp back to the leadership coaching. So you have a lot of flexibility. The key is the coachee has got to drive the agenda, and you have to feel comfortable enough to be flexible to see where that agenda needs to go. And so we'll talk about that effort. There have been folks that I've been coaching where they have issues they're dealing with that need counseling. I don't stop coaching. I just ask them, can I take my coach hat off and just speak to you as a fellow person in ministry? You may want to go seek a counselor for this. And then if they build that counselor relationship, we just feed that into the coaching where to whatever degree they want to bring it back in, they can to our discussions. But we continue on our journey and they deal with some of the deeper issues with a counselor. So what does a coach do? Clarity, challenge, care. I think there's 3 aspects that we can look at. We help clarify perspective, calling, and purpose, preparing them for that change. We challenge them. We can work with our coachees to say, where are you finding the battles? Where are you finding the struggles? What alternatives do you have? I use a piece that I brought in from my corporate coaching called a 1-3-1 model, where if they are facing a problem, I ask them, well, what 3 alternatives do you think might be available? Let's explore 3 different alternatives. Okay, now that we've talked through that, what one do you think is the most optimal solution to go with? And so just getting them to think beyond the challenges that they face, sometimes saying, well, can we come up with 3 alternatives in a brainstorming session, can challenge them to find a different outcome, and maybe one they didn't expect. So we'll talk about that a little bit as we go through. And then just care. Sometimes you get into a coaching relationship. Debbie and I started coaching a couple almost 3 years ago now, 2.5 years ago. And a month after we started the coaching, she had a miscarriage. And we immediately knew that the relationship they needed was care. They just needed love. And so we came alongside them for about 2 months and just prayed with them, just loved them. And then they picked up the coaching relationship again a few months after that. Deb and I have a personal journey that when we were first married, led to Deb and I losing a child and then ending up going through adoption. So God uses that. He uses our scars, and I just think it's neat to see how you can build that into your coaching. Be transparent. Bring your life into the discussions. And part of it is just that care that needs to be there. And it's honest, transparent, and sometimes raw. Dennis is going to go into detail on the core 4. But we're going to talk about the life plan, a vision plan, a ministry plan, and priority management. Some of you may have been through the whole cycle. Some of you may only have been through part of that cycle. But you'll get a deep dive into that while we're here today. But I just wanted to give you a snapshot of that. It'll be further in as we go through it. But our goal really is engaging the Holy Spirit in the midst of this process. And really getting it to a place where they can see aspects of coaching, mentoring, discipleship, accountability, all folded into what we do here at Navigators. Some of the areas that you may or may not have been introduced to up until this time is other ways in which you can coach. You can coach culture change in a church and a leadership team. Both Dennis and I have done that, and I know others in the room may have had that opportunity. But you know, more than just taking them through the IDC process, how do you make that more of a coaching relationship for a leadership team? Ways of the Alongsider, we're doing that with the NALC and others, of actually coaching through the Ways of the Alongsider in parallel with the leadership coaching. One church I'm working with in Michigan, we actually, rather than just getting an hour a month coaching, they contract for 2 hours. We do 1 hour on the leadership coaching and another hour on the Ways of the Alongsider. And so we're doing them in parallel. Women's Discipleship Tool, the Journey series, Debbie will speak to that over the next couple days. And then the Ministry Blueprint was really developed initially for the men's ministry and done by Ron Bennett. That Ministry Blueprint can be generalized, though, to just about any ministry that we would impact. In Coach Camp, Bill Mallory is going to go through this whole idea of church culture change. So I'm not going to speak to this diagram in any detail, but it's really trying to look at the IDC process through a different lens. Most of these materials that you see up here now are ones that are going to be covered in camp. I'm just giving you a little preview, so they're not actually in the materials that you're looking at for certification. Leadership Core is Pray, Team, Assess, Equip. You'll see a lot of terms, if you've been familiar with the IDC process, being just kind of recast in a new light. And what does it really mean to get to church culture change? Dennis, Bill, the others on the leadership team have done a great job of pulling together this idea of how do we develop a shared language, a shared values, shared stories, and shared practices within a church, within their leadership team, to drive that culture change and get them to be a church that can reach the community and send people out. Bill's going to go through this train diagram. If you haven't seen it, we'll see it in Coach Camp. Again, just a sneak preview, and talking about this journey for discipleship. We are coaching a lot of our folks beyond the leadership growth guide into what it means to go through this train diagram, purposeful picture, pathway practitioners in progress. You're going to get that in Coach Camp in great detail. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dennis. We are trying to record our sessions today using a remote mic that's in the camera. So Dennis, speak as loudly as you can.
Okay.
Hopefully we're not shouting at you, but we do want to mic up and figure all that out. We don't know if the tapes are going to come out and if they'll be available, but if they are, it'd be a fantastic resource for us to use with others in the future. So
Let's take that sheet and stick it on the wall so I have a blank sheet. Okay.
thank you, bro.
I gotta stand kind of like over here. I can't move around.
You can move around, but it's from the edge of the table right where you are all the way to the yellow.
I can move over here too.
Yep. You don't like being tethered, do you?
No, I don't. Hey, it's great to be here with you. When I was looking at the numbers, I was kind of thinking there was like 8, and now there's like 18 in here.
There you go.
And how many more are coming to Coach Camp? Like 5 more?
No, another 10.
Another 10. Okay, so there'll be another 10 in here with us. And this will be terrific. Well, it's just great to think about where this has started out. I'll just give you a little bit of a history. I've been around the Navigators a long time. Probably my first exposure is my mom and dad. If you'll go down to the bottom of the steps here and look, you'll see Dawson Trotman's some of his verse cards that he wrote out and his little devotional tools and a little tiny book about this side. Well, my dad was trained by the Navigators on board ship in 1941, 42, 43. If you look at the book Doss, you'll see my dad's face in there. My mom lived in the Trotman's home, so I have lots of roots in the Navigators, and so that's like 80 years ago. My parents are 97 and 94. They're having their 70th anniversary here in about 2 weeks. So we're going to celebrate that with them. Dad's got a little dementia, but he walks around the house quoting 1 John 5, 11, and 12. And he's just constantly quoting 1 John 5, 11, and 12. And then I'll just kind of bump him and I'll say 2 Corinthians 5, 17. He goes, oh, therefore if any man be it's like it's a record, he starts going. And one of the most cheery situations, I'm driving into this little place that he can stay and be with other folks that are facing the same challenges. And I just started singing, singing some of the old songs, Beneath the Cross of Jesus, that we used to sing growing up. And he just kicks in singing away. And he goes, I didn't know I knew that, And so when you have that short-term memory, you don't know you know stuff, and so you just kind of help along. So it was really, really special. But that's a little bit of my history in coming up through the Navigators, and but it's fun to see because Dad had those kind of tools in his little toolbox. And then he kind of moved away from the Navigators. Mom and Dad went back east, and then I grew up in a little home in that setting, and then hooked up with the Navigators in the military. And so discipleship, 101, lots of training, board ship, exciting times, and then collegiate ministry, city ministry. But in 1997, we were coming into Promise Keepers, and a young man by the name of Daniel Harkavy. Daniel was a young guy in Portland, Jewish fellow, come to Christ. He called me up and he said, look, I heard you're the disciple maker in town. I need you to come disciple the guys in my business. I have a business called Building Champions, and we coach CEOs, mortgage brokers. And I said, wow, what's coaching? I didn't know what that was. So every Friday I showed up at his place and I did discipleship. I went through a tool called Equipping the Saints, and Daniel began to help me see what was going on with coaching. And he said to me, do you think we could coach pastors and church leaders? Because his whole business was secular. And you know how much money he charged those people for coaching every month? $600 a month. And they would pay it because it was quadrupling their business. $600 a month. And so, I mean, this was a pretty lucrative operation going on. One guy was coaching CEOs, they'd be $10,000 a year for coaching. It's like, wow, and so he said, you think we coach pastors and leaders? I said, all right, let's go check this out. And so we got 40 pastors and leaders in a room, and Daniel talked about coaching, and these pastors said, yeah, I think this is a good idea. And so this was 2000 around that time, that Ministry Coaching International was started. And they asked me to be on the board, and so I got to really get the feel of this in about 2002, which is 12 years ago. They asked me to coach my first guy. I didn't have any of this certification training or anything like this. And I just had a year of coaching. And so I started out with this one pastor in Lawrence, Kansas, Dick Berwick is his name, pastor of an Assembly of God church. Now, how did Dick want to be coached by me? He didn't know me from Adam. But because of Building Champions and ministry coaching, this guy trusted, but what he really trusted was the Assembly of God pastor that had been coached by Greg Salsiccioli, and he trusted that, which then made him trust me. And so I come into his life, he doesn't know me from Adam, and I have to explain to him about coaching. So if you had to explain quickly coaching to somebody on the phone, what would you say?
Coaching is helping you to get to the next level.
Coaching is helping you get to the next level. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, helping a person move from where they are to where they want to be, recognizing some of the obstacles that get in the way, the resources they need to do to get that. And historically, it's built on the concept of a coach, which is a conveyance of transportation. It's a vehicle that takes you from one place to another.
Right, they're getting on the vehicle, the coach, the stage coach, and you're moving. So that's a great way to think about it. Renee?
A way to taking, intentionally evaluating your life choices to see if you're truly living out the values you want to live.
Okay. Good.
There's one aspect that I've heard that it's helping people realize that they know how to get to where they want to go, but they just don't know that they know how to do it.
Yeah.
So you're helping them unfold it and come to that point.
Okay. Good. And that's really what I kind of learned was, wow, you just got to find out where they are. And so this little bridge illustration formed in my mind that came from David Dury, and then I've kind of just stuck it up there, is that there's current reality, this left cliff, right? And then there's the intended future over on the right cliff. And then how do we get over this gap? So the concept of coaching the gap is really what made sense for me. I said, oh, okay, so I've always got to do whatever tools I'm using, whatever we're trying to give you in certification, there's tools to help you get to current reality. What's current? And that means lots of what questions. So I just started coaching a principal of a school in Thousand Oaks, California. He has 1,400 students in this Christian school. He was former Young Life, okay? And we get a lot of these young life guys, Dan. What's up with that? And so he says, I need to know. And so I just went and spent that time with him finding out his current reality in that 2-hour call. And then from there, we found out, what do you want to be? Where do you want to go? And he started telling me stuff. It's exciting to think about it. Christian school principal, 1,000 students. And then, all right, so what's your next step over here in action steps to move across and make progress? And so that's the elements that kind of make sense to me. Current reality, intended future, action steps, progress. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you want to have, as a coach, to be able to explain on the phone verbally what it is this simply is about. It's boom, 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 boom. And so I find that really helpful when you kind of think about how would I explain to somebody what I'm up to. Now, our heartbeat here as I listen and as we work is to really find out where you are currently, right? And where you want to get to. Like Don has given us a clue. Hey, I want to know how do I transition? Coaching aside. So there's some intended future. So I want you to keep thinking that way. What's my intended future? And I want to make sure that during this certification and coach camp that you all get that. And it's such an important piece. Coaching is incredibly exciting because when I coached this guy in Kansas, he said to me after a year or a year and a half, he said, you're the missing person in my life. I don't have anybody I can do this with. You realize that? That's absolutely amazing. Nobody, no elder on his team, nobody in the denomination. He's there by himself, alone. And so this is why this is such a powerful vehicle for us to come into the lives of people, no matter where they are, because they don't have someone like that. See?
I think this is that element that you just stated is a key element with pastors, having been a pastor's son most of my life.
Yeah.
That they need a sounding board in a major way.
Yep. Yep.
They need a neutral party that they can share transparently with. That is one of the biggest missing components that they don't have.
That's right. Very good. So realize there's a massive need out there. We've got 350,000 churches across this country. We're finding this in the North American Lutheran Church. We're finding it in the Southern Baptist Church. We're finding it in the Nazarene. We're going to find it everywhere. And so this is why it's a big part of what we're doing, because we feel like we need to be ready to take and be available. And the thing about coaching too is it used to be when I was doing my Navigator ministry, I'd meet one-on-one with a person. I'd pour my time into them, usually 2 hours or 3 hours or so a session, and I had so much emotional capacity. So how many people can you meet one-on-one with during a week? What's your capacity?
12.
12?
Anything beyond that is...
Anything 12. You see, you hit your pot, 12. What is the rest of you? What's your... 2. There's a high S over here, you know. With the 2. I can only do 2.
Depends on what else you're doing. If you're doing a bunch of other stuff, then
Yeah. So we kind of have a limited capacity. Well, one of the things I found about coaching, I can still meet one-on-one people, but coaching has expanded. Welcome, Bob. Come on in. This is fun to have you. We got front row seats right up here on the front row. All right. Do we have another book? Here.
Here's the stuff. If you want.
I'm sorry, I'm getting your camera.
You're fine. Pulse up.
From Minnesota, Ottertail, Minnesota, Bob. Right, you want some right here? You want some? You can sit over there with some.
Okay, maybe some
You got the corn down and everything?
Man, drowned it out.
You drowned it, corn? If you haven't met Bob Finstrom, he's up from Ottertail, Minnesota. Has a big corn farm. How many acres you got up there, Bob?
2,500.
2,500 acres of corn.
2,500 acres? Pardon?
2,500 acres. So you picture Bob in a big old tractor. And how many? What we got? How many churches you connected with up there in Minnesota?
Varies from month to month. You know, and sometimes 10, sometimes 50. You know, it just depends.
Depends on whether it snows 10 feet high or not. You know?
How bored everybody is.
That's great. Well, good to have you here. And so we're just kind of doing our introductions now and getting to know what's going on with the coaching thing. Okay. So Bob's here, kind of getting a taste of what this coaching is all about and how it works. Okay. So capacity. That's just what I found though is that coaching increased my capacity. I could talk to more people over a period of time. And so when I first started off, I got 1. Then I did 2, then 3. And my coaching muscles began to grow. So I've been at this for 12 years. Now you guys have been at it for how long now, Brian? You've been coaching not only in the Christian thing, but in the secular?
About 15 years.
15 years. So how many clients do you think you've had over those 15 years?
200.
200? Debbie?
I've just been coaching for 3 years.
3 years, so yours is maybe 40, 50, something like that. Well, the interesting thing is that I've been coaching for 12. I have over 800 clients that I've had.
800?
800. 800. But it took, but typically I'm operating somewhere between 30 and 40 per month in terms of people. And that's like, now that's just me, that's going to where I'm wired. It just fits my design that God made me. You don't have to have that capacity. But it definitely, the principle is it increases your capacity of the people you can touch and the distance that they are at. And we know in CDM that we all can't just coach people only in our own geographical area. We can coach people in all kinds of areas. So there's a guy calling me from Thousand Oaks, California. I'm on a coaching call with him, and away we go. Where God's going to take that, I don't know. I don't know where he's going to take it, but it's there. And that's the kind of the essence of what's going on in all this. So as you think about this, you say, wow, what has God got in mind for me? Now, the interesting thing when I see a couple like you guys, the light, I go, oh, look, Ryan and Debbie are coaching as a couple. You know, that's kind of a wild deal. They get a couple up in Canada, and so they spend separate time with but then they coach together. You know, so this is kind of a neat little way things can operate. And so you begin to, now, we just had a couple. This is an interesting story. Grants Pass, Oregon. Anybody ever in Grants Pass, Oregon? It's a thriving community of like, not very many people, but they're down there. And, what's that?
Thriving community of 80.
80, yeah, you drove through that thing.
It's on the map.
It's on the map, but Grants Pass has got to probably about 50 churches in there, and I get this call about 5 months ago, and 3 months. And he said, hi, this is Lloyd. I want Navigator training. Well, okay, Lloyd, tell me about yourself. He says, well, at age 50, I was a methamphetamine addict. I could not stop this stuff. And 50 years old, I lost all my teeth. And he said, and now my uncle took me down to the Rogue River. I got saved. He's helped me get established. He's teaching me the Word of God. And then I paint at the hospital. He says, every day I put in my earphones and I listen to Discipleship Library messages. I've listened to thousands of them as I've been hearing the Word of God from Leroy Adams, from Walt Hendrickson, on and on it goes. I don't know if you guys know this tool, but it's a wonderful coaching resource, www.discipleshiplibrary.com. Thousands of messages, just like that. You can push a button and you got them in your ear with these new smartphones. And so he's been doing that. He said, for the last 5 years, I got my teeth back. I'm walking with God. I'm discipling guys and in recovery. He says, can the Navigators train me? Well, that's 5 hours from Portland. Do I have a Navigator down there? No, I don't have anybody down there. So what do? I establish a coaching relationship with Lloyd, and we're on a phone call every 2 weeks. He says, is there a conference nearby? I said, well, we got one in Orlando. He goes, I'll be there. So he and his wife, Betty, fly from Grants Pass to Orlando to be a part of our conference. Some of you met them when they were at the conference. Yeah. Delightful couple, he and Betty, and they want to do this thing. And so it's phenomenal. So and then she says, can I get coached? So Debbie's coaching. No, Patty Damiami's coaching. Who would have ever thought that Patty from Michigan is coaching Betty in Grants Pass? Do you see the picture? You see this thing? This is amazing stuff. And they are loving it. And so I got help. I don't have to do all this because I can do this through a coaching relationship. Now, we invited Lloyd and Betty up for a little gathering with Denny Holbert in Albany, and so they're getting the fellowship of the Navigators, but we can keep the maintaining, discipling, and coaching relationship with this couple. And another one is John Larson from St. Paul, Minnesota. He gets with me, and he says, I want the Reveal survey done at my church. So we do the Reveal survey at church. I go up and meet him. I said, well, here's what we have in the Navigators. We have coaching, and we have coaching culture training. He says, sign me up for coaching. So John and I have been together in coaching for 4 years now. On the phone every couple of weeks, and then he shifted. He says, I just want to be coached once a month for an hour. I don't want the 30-minute thing. I want the whole hour. And he tells me what he wants, and then we sit and talk. He says, is it possible that my wife, Ruth Ann, could get coached too? Because we're retiring from our church. We've been here 30 years, and we'd like to do the next phase of our ministry. I said, you bet. So Debbie's got Ruth Ann, and they got the modeling of doing this together as a couple. And I tell you what, he told me this the other day. He said, Dennis, he says, it was 30 years ago that Ruth Ann and I ministered together. And since we pastored this church, she's been doing this, and I've been doing this, and we haven't done it together. We are so excited about doing this ministry together. And that's just what this possibility is. You catch this? It's just the fun stuff. So hold on to our hats as to what's going to happen as we move forward in this coaching. And you're a vital part of that. So we want to make sure you get a great foundation and understanding these things. And so I'm just going to give a couple of little tidbits. So when I try to explain coaching, I just remember this thing right here, current reality, intended future, action steps over here, and in progress. So I just kind of try to remember it simply and put that in the minds of the person that this is what we're coaching. We're coaching this gap, helping them take the steps. So put a visual picture in their mind and go from there. Now, in your notes, under Coach Certification Training, what I want you to turn is to page 2. And the other little helpful thing that has helped me along the way is understanding, and just kind of a little reminder back to page 14 in the introduction, is that as you establish, make sure that it's really clear in their mind that there's agreement and commitment. This is really the most essential item, and so that's why page 6 of the questionnaire gives you that agreement and commitment sheet. And so that's an important aspect. Agreement and commitment, and then how often are we going to meet together to do this coaching? And then the key word, process. One of the things you'll hear in coaching is 2 different schools, and this is an important piece to remember because our Navigator ministry has a different school. No?
Some of us are looking for where you're at on this.
Yeah, I'm giving you some extra stuff on this one. It's not on here.
You said page 2?
Yeah, well, go to page. Tell you what, go to page 14, and I'll just kind of make sure I'm just enhancing.
Certification too.
What's
That's
that?
fine. I think.
Certification 2 page?
Yeah, go to certification. Page 2. Okay, yeah, we'll just operate it from there.
So when we get all these extra little tidbits you're giving us, we can jot it down right where we're at.
Yeah, jot them down there. Yeah, I am kind of coming from more experience with you on this stuff, so it's jumping around, isn't it, really?
I got your back.
Okay, let me, yeah, okay, when you're on page 14, what is that there? What I'm doing is taking in the material that we put together here, and I'm just kind of remembering things that enhanced it for me as I was working along through this thing. So when you're looking at the coaching steps, in fact, let me just put it up like this. I just kind of looked at agreement and commitment, which is what that is on that little circle. When you got the little circle diagram like this, I just remembered agreement and commitment was a very important piece that we have over here. I think it's this one right here, agreement.
That was alignment in the book.
Is alignment in the book? I'm sorry for the confusion here I'm giving you. You're gonna bring that up? Okay.
4 circles are intro 14.
It's on the intro.
Intro 14.
Yeah, it's on intro 14. Okay, very good. Okay, agreement's at the top. Very good. Gonna pop that. I'm gonna bring it.
There it is.
There one.
Come back.
There it is.
There it
Yeah,
is.
there it is, okay. So on this particular diagram, when you get the agreement and commitment, I just found it in my head, it made more sense for me when I just had agreement down here as a foundation piece. I need to get this one first. I gotta make sure I have agreement and commitment first. And so we have to have some kind of, because what happens to people when they start learning about coaching is they just start becoming kind of coach mindset, and you just start coaching people. And I had somebody turn to me and says, "I don't want your coaching. Would you stop it?" I went, it was because it was in me to coach them, but they didn't want it. So you have to have an agreement. You can't coach somebody that doesn't agree to get coached. So that's why I don't start coaching unless you have that. So would you like coaching? Would you like? And so this is important to get that, because if we're disciplers, we're naturally thinking, I want to disciple these people, so I'm going to give them a curriculum and I'm moving this direction. But when you turn and switch your hat to coaching, you have to stop and go, do I have an agreement? Yep. Yeah. And so if you would like, I'd love to be able to coach you, but you need to agree to this coaching. Now, the important thing is, well, what are we going to coach about? Now, there's 2 different schools of coaching out there. There's one called non-directional coaching, and then there's one called directional coaching, all right? And they don't agree with each other, so you'll feel it when you're out in some kind of settings. You'll hear, well, that's not real coaching. And that's just debatable. But that's how the school probably usually, if you're familiar with the International Coaching Federation and some of these things. So the Navigators in the early 1999, they taught non-directional coaching to some of our staff. And I got in on it, and so I learned that. But I found non-directional coaching very frustrating because I couldn't figure out where to go. It was kind of like I'd get on the phone call and I'd go, where do you want to go today? You know, and they weren't sure, you know, and it was just more uncomfortable in terms of coaching. But what happened is with directional coaching, it made more sense for me. And that's what I learned from Building Champions. They provided me with what I call a process. So you have agreement and commitment, which is that part of, and then when you're doing the alignment, you have to create the right structure. Well, how often are we going to meet? When are we going to meet? How's that going to work? And so everybody has to agree with that structure. Then I like the word, when I'm looking at this, I like the word process. And what Brian was sharing with us is when you have process, you can directionally coach. You have process right here. Everybody can see that. Process. So process means there's a beginning and an end. And so that's why when we introduced to you the 4 core, this was a tool that was used by Building Champions, and they allowed us to own it. So we now have our Navigator 4 core. And I'll make a copy of this for you so you can have this. So this is very helpful. It's just recently Bill Mallory tried to put this together so you can kind of explain or send a copy to your client saying, this is the 4 core. Now we have this in the green book. It's right up front. If you have looked up in the introduction here, it's way in the front. And it sits in a page like this. So if you have, so when you're saying this is the process we're going to coach on, that's right there. Okay, right in the green book.
It's on page 3 in certification.
Yeah.
In the book.
Yeah, so it gives the core 4. It's in the certification, but this is the core 4. But we want you to be able to have a visual way in which you can communicate the core 4. Okay, the core 4 is what? Who can tell me what the core 4 is? Life plan.
Ministry vision.
Ministry vision. Ministry plan, priority. Got it? Okay, so you want to have that up in your mind. This is the process that I'm coaching, is these 4 items. Got it? And then it breaks it down into a nice little framework. So I'm going to have Barb make copies for everybody here in this particular item.
Can you send this, that in a PDF so we can pass it on to others?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been going through the final steps of redesign.
There's some more
changes
stuff?
from Roy. Yeah, but it's pretty close.
Okay, good. We'll make sure in the next 3 days whether you get this, because we want to make sure you have a clear set of process. So remember this, that wherever you have a process, you can coach it. Okay, does everybody make sense out of that? When you got a process, life plan, ministry vision, ministry plan, priority management, you can coach that. That gives you directional coaching. It doesn't mean you're going to disciple them. You're just going to use that as the track that you're going to lie on. I've had some situations where I got into the life plan. Brian said this recently. We were coaching some North American Lutherans, and they didn't want to go here because coaching is about the client. It's about what they want, not about what I want. Right? This is the distinction between discipleship. And you disciple somebody, you have a curriculum that you're going to take them through, they agree. But here, you're saying, what do you want? And so what we found out is this guy didn't want this. He wanted tools. He wanted ministry stuff. So Brian had to adapt to that because that's what he wanted. Now, we didn't want that ourselves. We wanted him to go here, but we had to adapt. Sometimes a guy will come to me and he says, I want priority management right now. That's what I need.
So Dennis, with that, do you then press and get commitment from the individual to cover the other areas after you go to number 3?
All we can do is say, this is our coaching process. Would you be willing to commit to go through this?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have to get that agreement and commitment that they're willing to go through it.
And I say that because I thought prior to that, you're getting a commitment for a 1-year commitment of the whole process. Is that right? Or
Well, for him, we changed the commitment, and we just went with the coaching process through ways to be alongside or another discipleship.
Oh,
So we had to switch the process because that's what the guy wanted.
So we're not doing the 1-year thing in this
Well,
scenario?
the idea is, and again, 1 year is not necessarily locked in stone. It just says, normally this takes 1 year. Would you be willing to commit to go through this process? So we're introducing the process of the core 4, and then would you be willing to go through it?
Okay, so a follow-up if I can. do I hear you saying then, in this case with the Lutheran pastor, that what you did or what he's asking for is the alternative, like with the Ways Alongside-er, or
Yeah, so you've got lots of processes, so the Ways Alongside-er is a process. And
or
you can coach
in other
through it.
words, more of an individual specific type of coaching
Mhm.
rather than the 1 year,
Yeah.
or core four.
That's right. So, see, that's what I want you to understand.
Okay.
Wherever there's a process, you can coach it. And you have to be sensitive to what they want. Because if Brian had said, look, buddy, you're in the North American Lutheran Church, and I'm going to coach you through this.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you think what that guy would have done? He would, thanks a lot. He'd said, that's not what I want. Now, what we messed up on that particular area is when we introduced this whole thing to them, we weren't clear on this with the Iowa team. We weren't as clear as we needed to be with those Iowa pastors. Now, the dean got it, but the other 4 didn't get it as clear because we were traveling all across Iowa with the bishop, introducing this stuff, and if I had to do it over again, I'd be putting this sheet in their hands saying, this is what coaching is, because they didn't get that. They didn't get it at all, and so we messed up on that. Dan?
Yeah, when I got together with different pastors, their focus of interest was development of ministry.
Yes, ministry
And in
focus.
the beginning of my relationship, I would like to help them to understand that their own maturity in the Lord would be the solid foundation for ministry.
Very good. That's right.
If they buy into that, great. If they don't, I have to adjust my.
You have to adjust. Coaching is
Otherwise,
about
they'll
lots
say
of
no, thank
adjustment.
you.
Yeah, very good. Okay, Dan, and then you, John.
And then some, oh, I'm sorry.
It just sounds like directional and undirectional both at play here. Directional is the process and the framework that you give them, and you got agreement to initially.
That's right.
You do the track to move down, but the trump card that they always have is non-directional.
That's right,
coaching.
yeah.
They say, none of this track really interests me, I'd like to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, you may get into their life plan and all of a sudden there's a big marriage issue. Or there's something dealing with their children. Or something else that pops up. I've got situations where emotional health is popping up. They're just dealing with super insecurities. So I say, well, do you have any resources to help you with that area? No, I don't have anything. I said, well, I've got a book that I've read called Emotionally Healthy Church. Is that something you would be interested in looking at? And they go, yeah. So they grab that book, and that becomes a part of the coaching process because that helps me go from 6 areas of emotional health, and I can coach through that. See that, Manny?
So you have different tools that you use according to the need of the person.
Exactly, that's right, yeah. So that's why you're not trying to sell them at the beginning on emotional health because you don't know if that's the need. But as you're coaching, you're going to spot the needs, and so you want to begin to reach in your toolbox and say, here's something that helped me. And this is kind of in the coaching thing, is that you have to ask permission. I have a resource. Is that something you would be interested in looking at? As opposed to, part of the coaching is you must read emotional health. That's not what we're saying to you. But we can have those tools and resources. Don?
At some point, are we eventually going to get all of our 1,000 resources categorized?
We have the resources on this. We have some
categorized as catalog, so we know that.
Like an appendix?
Yeah.
It's in here.
We have some in the book, and
Oh, it's in
probably
here?
it'll be expanded, yes.
It's in here.
appendix.
It's in the appendix.
Oh, sweet.
So there's, as we learn, and there's things that you're going to be learning with us, and you go, oh, this is a great tool, and it worked for you. Well, good. We don't know about it. Tell us, and we'll try to expand that.
Yeah, like a great example of that this year, one of the pastors said, I've come out, I've been pastoring for 12 years, and they never taught me what it means to be a spiritual leader. But he was a huge fan of Blackaby, and I said, well, actually, when I went through Liberty, I went through spiritual leadership with Blackaby. Do you want to take an off-road? And there's a workbook. You purchase it through Amazon, and I'll coach you through that for 3 months. And so we're coaching through Blackaby spiritual leadership for 3 months, and then we're coming back to the life plan. So if you have tools and you know how to use them, use them. We're not saying you have to use what's in this book alone, but then what we ask is feed it back into the cycle, so if it is something that works, we can feed it out to the rest of the coaches.
Okay? Everybody good so far? Track it, John?
Just one comment. Sometimes you do hit a situation where a pastor or whoever you're trying to coach is not open to change or growth. And then you don't want to, it's a matter of stewardship of your time, you don't want to waste your time, so
No.
you want to be creative if you can to circle them back around to get to where, but if they're not going to go there.
Yeah, if somebody doesn't want to
then-
be coached, then you can't.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, you can't coach somebody where they don't want to go. So that's the principle.
When you're coaching someone through a book like that, are you coaching them to the degree that you're getting them to read a certain amount and have it done, or are you literally asking them questions on the material, going over it?
I think the issue I find is, what would you like to read before our next session?
Right.
Okay.
I'll read the next chapter. Okay, good. Would you be interested in completing the little assessment tool in that book? Oh, yeah, I will. So then the action step becomes them reading that. And I can't tell you, this emotionally healthy stuff is like knock it out of the park. I mean, Peter Scazzaro has put together this healthy tool, Emotional Healthy Church and Multi-Healthy Spirituality. Phenomenal resource. Anybody else use that? You guys, yeah, isn't it a great book? You know, I mean, it's just so helpful because this guy's a pastor and he went through all this stuff that was just killing him. And it was in his marriage and all these areas, and that's what we're really after, is how to get a healthy pastor, and a healthy pastor marriage, and a healthy, then he can then minister best to those folks in those particular areas. So these are the kind of things we hope to be able to share with you, but the issue is they have to give you permission. But one of the things to remember in the coaching, you don't have to be the answer person for everything.
Yeah, so on like the Blackaby study,
Yeah.
I don't go through the study with him. He does the study, he does the workbook, and then I ask him 3 questions. What did you gain most out of the study you did in the past week? Where did you have the most challenge? And so what action are you going to take? And that's it, that's the coaching. But he's using the resource, and when he talks about the challenges, because I'm familiar with it, I know, you know, the material, so I can respond to what he's seeing as the benefits, the challenges, and action items. But it's still coaching. We're not going line by line through the questions.
Say this-
Can we have those questions again?
Say the, second and third question again.
What did you benefit or gain from what you just studied the last 2 weeks? What challenged you most? So what action are you going to take? Those are the 3. Exactly what we normally ask in any coaching.
All right. It's so fun to be sitting here looking at you because I just think about how God's going to use you in so many unique ways with these people that God's going to give you. It's amazing. Amazing. All right, so take a look on page 2. So as you think about it, just again, you've got agreement, commitment, you've got structure, you've got this process, and then you do the coaching. And one of the things that we're pretty committed to is transferability. That's why as you coach, we want you to be able to use our systems of certification and Coach Camp to keep you coaching and to keep you getting better at it, so that God can bless you in the ministries that He's given you in this whole work that we've been called to. Now, as you're looking at it, on page 2, we're looking at coaching proficiencies. Everybody with me right now? I want to just kind of give you that little heartbeat of coaching for me. Leadership, assessment, and vision. We're going to just kind of look at that lightly. And then establishing trust and building rapport. These are some key elements that you want to be able to do. And so when you're on that phone call with them, basically the system that we're setting up here is they're going to be people that you're going to meet through your normal circles of life that you invite to get into coaching, and they get in there because they trust you, right? Or it may be that your pastor trusts you and he says, would you be willing to coach so-and-so? Then you get into coaching because of the trust. But it's either the trust that you have with them personally, or the trust that somebody else gives you, or the trust of the Navigator Church Ministries. Because when they come into Brian's site, or I'm Brian's site, can I leave that thing? When they come into the CDM coaching site and they hit registration, Brian gets this information. And he learns about these clients. And they're coming. I don't know how many we got out there in our hopper right now in terms of how many we're coaching. Do we have that?
Oh, total? We were at just under 200.
200. So you think about that, that's going to expand, all right? But they come through, and why do they? They trust Navigators. I'm getting connections from people. Oh, I've got one this morning. And the lady says, I need to know about this. I saw your email. Can you help me with it? So they come through this system. We invite them to go into the coaching, and then Brian and Debbie have to then look out over our certified coaches and determine who's the best person to coach this. And so all of a sudden, Peter's getting the name of a client, and Peter gets on. Why does that person trust Peter? Because he's a Navigator CDM coach. That's Well, he does the coaching with them. And that's why we have to, the organization is where you're gaining your trust. And so the North American Lutheran Church are trusting us to coach their pastors. And so we're connecting them up, and that's why they're signing up for coaching, is the trust issue. So trust is a critical component for the coaching. So establishing that trust also goes deeper when you get on that call with them and they begin to talk with you. I've had some situations where it's been helpful to meet with them face to face. And sometimes I think I might have lost it when I was with them face to face. I don't like him. I don't want him to go through it. And then the other, I can think of one situation where I got in, and because of the DISC training, I learned about the DISC and the importance of that. And then I got this client, and Tom, I'll kind of refer to you because this client was a high S in Atlanta, Georgia. And I did not switch. I'm an ID, and I didn't switch to the S. And he had fired me at the end of the call. He says, "Can I get somebody else?" And I sat there and went, and he got somebody else. You know, because I didn't sensitize to his need for processing. I had all of his problems solved in 20 minutes, you know, I mean, but that wasn't my job, to solve all his problems. My job was to coach him, you know, and so you learn through these things. And, you know, bat 1,000. There's some situations where they may not connect. You may just not feel that connection. At the end of the first call, you may say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel like we're doing? He goes 6, 2, 3. Then you may need a new coach, you know. So
it happens.
So that's, don't get over, like you're not a failure, just that one didn't work. Okay? So, all right, so as you're looking at the proficiencies, we want you to learn, why am I doing all this? What's this all about? How do I establish that trust? How do I deliver this effective 2-hour? The 2-hour call is one of my most important pieces because that's where you get the most download on their current reality. You've got to know all about that. That questionnaire is a very important tool to go through, to discover, to find the open nerves. You're often like what's called, I call a dentist. You know how you go to the dentist office and he lay there and he's going with a little poker? You remember that thing? Don't you love going to the dentist and oh, all right. I had a root canal recently, and man, that guy found that thing, and it was just amazing. I didn't care how much money it was going to cost. Let's get this. So he coached me through that. So the 2 hours is a very important proficiency we want to continue to enhance today and continue to help you be able to do that one. Understanding the Everything Workplace DISC. Now, when I got coached, we used a different DISC. So Brian and Debbie has brought in their relationships and their DISC skills to help us. And this is a great, great tool. It has multiple facets. There was a situation with a pastor in Rock Point, Minnesota, and he said, "Can I have my team coached?"
Show that in camp.
You show that in camp. Well, this DISC thing sets it all up, creates a whole team setting, and you coach the whole church team through their DISC. And they gain great trust in each other. It's a phenomenal little resource in that regard. And then the dynamic 30-minute sessions. How do you roll into the 30-minute sessions? You may have the question, well, can I only do 30 minutes? Who can tell me why 30 minutes? Because some people say, I want more time. I can't get it all in 30.
Because if not, you're going to be...
Huh? Go ahead.
If you stay longer, you're going to be drifting around.
Okay.
Great.
Ready? Go ahead.
I think it's 45 for women.
Again, it can be...
I think it's 45 for a lot of pastors.
Yeah. But you have to have, again, agreement commitment. The reason why you say we're going to have a 2-hour call, and then I'd like to set up a 30-minute call with you for the next period of time, a year, and every 2 weeks. Does that sound good to you? Yes. But you may get into the situation, you say, it may be better for us to have 45. Would you be willing to agree to 45? And again, if they're willing to be 45 and you're willing to do 45, go for it. But what I'm finding is, in my 30-minute skills, is that I know that if I talk too much with them or coach too much, it's too many action steps. Too many things pop up. And before you know it, they got 7 action steps. And so I usually want to get 2 or 3 and 4 at the max. And I find if I can keep it in that 30-minute time, that keeps it there. So that's the reasoning behind it. But you can agree and commit to whatever times. I mean, this guy, remember the guy, the pastor from Minnesota, he said, I'd like an hour once a month. Okay, hour's good. And that's what I agreed to. But I coached him for 3 years already. We've done all the other pieces. And he wanted to keep on going in that.
Would you say, Dennis, that it might be helpful to tell the client why we do 30 minutes?
Sure, sure. I tell them all the time.
And that it's been my experience, you know, the coach is saying, it's been my experience that this is more productive because I succinctly tell you 3 or 4 things, and I think you can grow better as a result of that.
And some people, some pastors and leaders are just too busy. And so what you do, if you say, well, we could be an hour coach, and go, oh, I don't have an hour. But you say, can you do 30 minutes? You know, so 30 minutes feels better to some folks. That's. But once they get going and the trust goes, they'll change.
And has it been your experience that you do get better results when you stay to 3 or 4 points?
I think so. For me, I just, when I hit the call and I'm moving into it, we hit 2 or 3 pieces that pop right up. We focus on the action, and I'm rolling out of that call, you know, probably 10 minutes before it's over. So we're just starting to move out of it. We'll work on that proficiency in the 30-minute call for you, but that's what I find. And also because I'm coaching more, and if you're only coaching 2 or 3 people a week, then you've got pretty good flexibility. But if you're coaching 30, and that may even cross your mind. Anybody want to do 30 eventually? See, there's no 30s in here. But anyone's going to 30, good. But 45 minutes each. But again, some people are thinking, okay, if I'm going to do 30 or 45 minutes, I need to have a break in between. And so you start adding that up. You have a 15-minute break. You could probably coach, 5 or 6 a day. It just depends. And but I find I coach Tuesdays and Thursdays, and that's where I put most of my clients right in there. And then I have the rest of the time to do the rest of my Navigator work.
Yeah, I find a lot of times that at the end of the coaching, I want to review and recap things in my own mind.
Yeah, that's
if
right.
I've gone too long, I don't have the capacity, so I've got to take a break.
Very good.
And then when I come back, it's hard to recapture things.
Yeah, so learn your
if it's
capacity.
shorter, then you can,
Good.
you have the recap time, and then you still have a chance for a break.
Yeah, good, very good. So learn your capacity, learn what this is your deal. You have to figure out what I can do. And build your muscles, your coaching muscles. They become comfortable after a while. Things start happening faster. Your resource pool is building. So all these things are taking place, okay? Is this helping? Making sense? Okay, all right, good. All right, so in this intro and proficiencies, what you want to do is turn to the second page and hit that in terms of the core 4. So then on page 3, core 4. Okay, any questions on the core 4? We'll give you a copy of this. Everybody's got really need to know what the elements are, and we'll be hitting this at the end of the day on some of the details of the core 4. Okay, Tom?
Can I go back to the previous with the alignment?
Yeah.
Or the, I think it was, I forgot, where you go over the coaching contract in a sense.
Yeah, it's under agreement.
It doesn't go into much detail on that in terms of the, coaching fee or how you handle that.
Oh, yeah, good, coaching fee,
That's,
okay.
That's something, I build right into my contract, so I'm kind of curious how that works in this case.
Okay, and we have not really.
Specific question.
The coaching thing is, what is the fee? It's important to really understand when you're getting the coaching, the person who pays the $250 up front is kind of like the materials thing, and that comes through, and then the agreement is between you and the client and your Navigator relationship, because we have a system in which funds can be given through an honorarium or through a gift to your ministry. That's the system that's there. If you're not connected to the Navigators, I think everybody here has got, all of us have our connection. You're not connected. So this is a different situation for you all, so we'd have to be adapted.
Well, in certain ways. So the ministry contribution part of it, there's a lot of flexibility in what you charge. Like I said, mine range from $100 to $250 a month to $500 a month if I'm doing culture change. So we did provide a sample letter that you can use as a contract, or a sample invoice in here. But when they send in and go through the registration process or ask for info, they get a clear outline of the expected contribution of $100 per month for the hour. You have flexibility to adjust that. The registration fee is $250. And there is some flexibility on that, but there's some approvals you have to go through if you want to lower that fee, so you just need to contact WRI. For churches, we have pastors that are actually coaching now as part of their efforts. And they send people to register for the $250, and then they take whatever donation to their church they want outside of Navigators. But they do have their clients pay for the initial registration fee. And then they get the same materials and coach it as pastors. So. Does that help?
Yeah, no, so that's what you all can do in your situation, because you have a system by where a donation can be made. And the pastor up in Minnesota, he goes, I'm just doing it pro bono. But that's his choice. If he wants to do it, pro bono. But the $250 is just what it gets to get to the church. Does that make sense? You guys know how to work that? Okay, and you all are partners? Have you established a partner relationship with the Navigators yet? You know what that is? Official. Maybe we should give them the official part.
We'll get that.
Official handshake.
Should I get them?
Official handshake, underwear, all that.
Should I tackle them?
Okay. All right, so everybody's got this sense of the core four. Any questions on the core four? Everybody got that clear?
We'll get a lot more of that.
Okay. Coach Training Resource Guide. What's this? This is this little resource guide here. All right. Everybody seen a copy of this? Understand how this works? Okay. So that's all broken down into here. And then what I wanted to do is look at over here on page 5 as Moses How to Coach. Somebody says, well, you guys are into this business stuff, you know. I mean, you're doing that coaching. That's really secular, you know, and that's really a business. So how can that go in the church? And so this is where you want to have this resource at your fingertips.
What page do you want to go to? 5.
Page 5, Moses How to Coach. Everybody there? And this is a great story. Have y'all read this before? Everybody been in Exodus? Exodus, everybody done this before? Who hasn't looked at Exodus with Moses? This Exodus 18? You familiar with that? Jethro, yeah, it's a great little situation. So what's the fun thing about this, and I'm just going to lightly touch it, but the issue is you actually go to 18 with them. Let's read this. So what happened, and I like this, is that Moses sent his wife and kids back home. Remember that? He sent them back to Jethro. So why did he do that? It doesn't tell us exactly, but we can surmise that he was so busy, he didn't have time for the wife and kids. And so he sent them back to Jethro. So here's Jethro, Father, I got the kids. He goes, oh, what's all this? And so he's back there going, well, I better go find out what Moses is doing. So he goes and he brings wife and kids to Moses, and he looks and sees current reality. He sees what's going on, and he's observing all this, all right? You see the situation? He gets the current picture, and he praises Moses. He thinks, wow, this is phenomenal. Look at all the things that God's done. And he goes on real positive. Well, one of the things about coaching is that you just continue to encourage people, praise them, tell them what the great things are going on. And then, you notice what he says, what Moses gets to? Jethro gets to current reality, and then he looks at intended future with him. He says, you know what's going to happen if you keep doing this? This is what's called laser informing in coaching. It is not good what you're doing. And sometimes you may have to laser inform on a coach call. It is not good. Or how do you feel about that? Not good. All right, do you want to continue to do that? No. What do you need to do to stop that? And to start this. And so coaching with those what questions is what Jethro did. It's not good. And he began to say, you will wear yourself out. And so he helped him with an intended future solution. Remember? He said, let's break this down, break down the leadership. And you remember the end of the story? He left the wife and kids back with Moses because Moses had time to take care of the family. Now, and so this is just an interesting little story to read through and see how he coached Moses in his life. And there's numerous examples of current reality, intended future, action steps, and progress throughout the scriptures. So this was really important when you're explaining to somebody about coaching how it is very much a biblical concept and how people did this. All right? And so you can see some of the coaching conversation tools and the variety of things listed right under coaching conversation. Other concepts, Timothy, the disciples of Jesus. So as you go to page 6, you're looking at the whole issue of what is a coach? He's a masterful listener. She's a masterful listener.
6.
Learning how to listen. Yeah, bottom of page, certification 6. Everybody there? Go to certification. Okay, let's see, Manny, we got to get you.
There's something wrong here.
Go. Okay, you got to go to, keep going. Should be certification. Keep going that way. That's right. Jump it down. Keep going under certification.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah, you've been wondering where we are. Sorry, we lost you on there. There's your Moses thing.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody got that? The set's there. Everybody good on the same place? Okay, good. So masterful listening. There's some great proverbs in here about listening. What have you learned about being a good listener?
You have to pay attention.
Pay close attention.
You will feel valued if you do it.
Okay. Build value.
Listen with your head and your heart.
Yep.
Listen to the person, listen to Jesus.
Ah, very good. Because remember, the Holy Spirit's working inside, so you need to listen to the Holy Spirit as He's speaking to you about coaching.
When you're listening, the person you're listening from appreciates the fact that you do listen.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Dane, and then.
Yeah, just, you have to shut off what's going on in your own mind.
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever, either you're finding connections with them or there's other stuff going on.
Yeah. And there can be a temptation that you've got something you really want to give them, you want to share with them, you want to help them, you know, and you want to tell them about it, and you have to go, I know, I got just what you need. Bam! And then they go, he wasn't listening.
Yeah. Read on my call the other day.
It's a real temptation because we got goodies, you know, and we had something we learned and we got to tell them, you know.
Yeah. By listening, you hear the need, and if we're preoccupied in our thought process and we don't listen, then we miss the need.
Yep. Okay, Tom, one more thing.
Yeah, with counseling or therapy, you often have supervision that goes on. Any thoughts about that in relationship to this? How can we better hone our skills by having some, mentor coaching?
And what we're doing so far, and we want to improve this, is part of certification is that you will have a client and you will have a 2-hour and that will be recorded. And so what I do with all the guys that I'm certifying, and we want to make sure this happens for you after this time is over, is that you will record a 2-hour session. And then your coach will listen to that session and give you a full assessment on how you did. So for example, if Margaret's coaching, let's see, who are you coaching in here, Margaret? You're coaching?
In here?
Yeah.
Linda finished.
Okay, you're coaching Linda. So Linda, when you get a client, what's going to happen is you're going to do your 2-hour, and we're going to show you how to record it. And then you're going to send Margaret a copy. She's going to listen to your coaching and then write out a little report. I'll give you an assessment. Because the way we think about coaching is you can remember it by IDEA if you want to try to remember it. I is instruction. You get instruction, and when you've experienced coaching, so you're getting demonstration. You've seen it happen with you. And then E is you get experience. You have to do it. And then A is assessment. So we always want to make sure we do all 4 of those things for you in coaching. Instruction, I, D, demonstration, E, experience, and A, assessment. What does that spell? Idea. You get the idea. And that's the 4 pieces we have to do in this. So that's why we're going through this instruction. You've got it already demonstrated by being coached, and then you're going to practice. And one of the things that's fun about Coach Camp is lots of practice. So you're going to get lots of experience and then assessment as to how you're doing in those areas. So that's kind of how that works. But masterful listener, one of the things you'll need to develop is a way in which you listen and record what you're hearing. So I sit there. That's why I don't do Skype. I have my phone thing stuck in my ear and I have my computer in front of me. And wherever I'm sitting, I'm typing out notes of what they're saying to me. So I can listen better. It makes me listen when I'm typing. And you may not have some other way to do it, but I find it really helps. So I use Outlook, I have the coaching appointment, and I just type right into Outlook what I'm hearing, and then when that appointment moves, I just move the appointment to the next, and I have that information that I typed out. Okay, see how that works? So be a good listener, some means by which you're typing out what they're saying to you. Okay, then let's move to one more page here in the certification. Active listening from a Christian perspective. These are just some thoughts for you in terms of ideas there on methods of behavior change. This is again the page that when someone asks you what's the difference between coaching, counseling, etc., this page is helping you answer that question. And we won't spend a lot of time in there, but it gives you just what these different things do and what makes coaching unique. And finally, coaching foundations. This is the page that I used for the illustration of the bridge. Okay? So that kind of lays it all out in terms of our introductory areas. Okay, any questions? Good. Everybody got a good feel for where we're heading here? And one of the things we want to make sure is you get all the pieces that you need to be effective and successful. So let's take a little break here for about, we're running a little bit behind about 10 minutes, so we'll just take a 10-minute break. Sound good? All right, stand up, take 10 minutes, restroom break, and we'll get going to the next section. Good job, Robert. Justin.
Should be close.
Yeah, it's good.
It's okay.